What's up, fellow Thursday people? It is I, the OGGM. It's Thursday. It's 8 o'clock. It's the 10th day of February 2022. It's 62 degrees and sunny with a high winds warning and, of course, a excessive heat warning and, zombie warning. And today it is Thursday, which means we are doing things that I love from role-playing. And today we're looking at a very little-known D&D Greyhawk adventure from a short-lived series of modules for AD&D. I think there's 4 of them, called Child's Play by Skip Williams. Child's Play I loved so much. It's one of the few adventures I have pretty much memorized, more or less. And the plot is very simple. It was designed for introductory play, introductory DMs, the idea of maybe higher level characters solving a problem, so it gave some pre-generated characters. There's a lot of reasons why I love this. The main 2 is the very first time I read it, I was laughing hysterically. Now, I don't know if it was intended to be a silly adventure, but if you read it in a certain light, especially if you look at the very first encounter and some of the other encounters and the running theme about the rabbit, it's a silly game. It is also technically a high-level game, which means it can be a very deadly game. The second thing I loved about Child's Play, every time I've run it, every time I've read it, every time I've played through it, is every encounter can be resolved in 2 ways. They can be resolved through diplomacy and talking and questions and answers and interacting with the encounters, or, of course, they can be resolved through combat. And it sort of feels like the module is designed to be resolved, many of the encounters, through just question and answers. One of the very first encounters in Child's Play. The theme of the module is there's a monarchy, a young group of noblemen. Among them, the children of the queen have launched a campaign to turn the country into a democracy. The group claims a constitution exists, which proves the land was intended to be a monarchy. There are other people who claim, no, it's not. There's no, legitimate heir to the throne. Everybody's arguing over the throne. Everybody's arguing over this constitution. Go get the constitution, see what it says. Unfortunately, no one remembers where the constitution was buried. They know it was buried with the founding king, but they don't really remember where. But they know there's one guy who does remember where, an elf ranger, if I remember the module correctly, who was old enough and around them back at that time to go get it. So they hire some adventurers to go and get this reclusive elf ranger and get him to lead them to where the original constitution is buried, so they can finally resolve whether the kingdom is supposed to remain a kingdom or the kingdom is supposed to be a democracy, and who is next in line. So the very first encounter, as you're going to try to get to the ranger's house, and this is what just sets the tone of the whole game and why I love it so much and why I think it can be run for any level, and I think it can be run for both serious and silly, and I think every encounter can be resolved by non-combat or combat. So the very first thing is the pair of characters hear a bunch of clanging. And as they get closer to the field where they hear the clanging, they see a bunch of goblins or other small little creatures running around, banging together pots and pans. And as they get closer, they see that all these little creatures, these goblinoids, are dressed in like amazing courtly clothing, like cloaks and boots and silk shirts and big poofy hats. Like each one of them has got like maybe 20, 50, 100 gold pieces worth of costume jewelry and fine noble clothing. And they're running around this field banging pots and pans together. And they're in the center of the field is a big tent, like a big noble's tent. What the goblins are doing is they're chasing things and catching them, putting them in cages. And when you confront them, they say they're looking for a rabbit. In fact, they accuse you of being a rabbit because The goblins don't know what a rabbit is. So they're just collecting everything and then waiting for the people who hired them to come back and tell them which thing they caught as a rabbit. Now, I thought that was hilarious. The imagery's hilarious. But then I realized goblins would know what a rabbit is. They're not that stupid. Even if they do live underground, they would know what a rabbit is. In fact, I would pretty sure that rabbit would be somewhere on a goblin diet, and considered a delicacy. So I often change the encounter to be things that wouldn't know what a rabbit is. Either so often I say they're creatures from another plane, or they're imps or whatever. Anyways, they're a very flimsy explanation for why, when they accuse you of being a rabbit, and why they're looking for a rabbit, and why you see all the things they've captured, and you go down to the cages and you see all the things they've captured, and they've captured a lot of things. They've captured a skunk, they captured a crab, they captured a pixie, they captured a small green slime, but the one thing they don't have is a rabbit. But for some reason, they don't know what a rabbit is. So the first in combat could be because they accuse you of being a rabbit, because they don't know what rabbits look like. So they try and catch you. Now you can talk them out of it. And, the multiple times I've run this first encounter, only one time did one player draw a picture of what a rabbit looked like. And it was an 11-year-old girl. 11-year-old girl sitting at a table with a bunch of other people and her mom and a couple other players, and they're encountering this thing, and they're all like arguing with the goblins and trying to fight. The fight's about to break up, and they're like, the goblins are like, I don't know what you're a rabbit because we don't know what a rabbit looked like. They're accusing the elf of being a rabbit because, hey, you've got long ears, you're a rabbit. The 11-year-old pulls out a piece of paper from her backpack, draws a picture of a rabbit, and says, I draw a picture of a rabbit and show it to the goblins. And I've run this encounter multiple times, and she was the first to ever get it and draw them a picture of what a rabbit. And then the goblin's like, oh yeah, you're not. And then they're all like upset because they haven't caught any rabbits. And they're like, first they're like, are you sure that's a rabbit? And then they're like, oh, okay, yeah. So why are they so dressed up, and where did this big tent come from? Well, there's a magic item in D&D called the Rod of Splendor. And one of the functions of the Rod of Splendor is to create a big giant tent. And it also can produce like 1,000 gold pieces a day worth of costume clothing and costume jewelry to make you look like nobility. Well, 1,000 gold pieces worth of costume jewelry and costume clothing divided up by 12, 15 goblins, that can go a long way. And, and they've got this big gigantic tent, and they're just running around this field, banging pots and pans together and other things to capture rabbits. And that's just hilarious. And as the adventure continues, almost every encounter is we're looking for a rabbit, and as you get further on, they know what a rabbit is, but apparently it's a specific rabbit. And then when you finally get to the ranger's house, which is in this like glade, and he's got a giant dog, and he's got a maid, and she hasn't seen the ranger in a while. But she invites you to spend the night because he'll be back any day. The player characters hear glass breaking upstairs, and when they run upstairs, they see a thing of ink has been knocked over, and there's little rabbit footprints on a painting of the ranger. And they go outside, and there's this little rabbit running around that's got ink on its feet. And of course the dog is chasing it, and the rabbit then like hits the dog, and the dog's like breaks its arm, and basically the rabbit is telling the party, I'm the ranger. That's why it's stuck its little feet in the thing of ink and is putting its feet on the painting of the ranger to tell them, I'm the ranger. So eventually, through either finding a dispel magic scroll in the ranger's vault or them casting dispel magic, spoilers, the rabbit is the ranger, and the rabbit head the ranger had been polymorphed into a rabbit by the people who want to keep the monarchy a monarchy, but he broke away, which is why they've been hiring all these monsters to hunt down a rabbit, starting with the goblins, who for some whatever reason don't know what a rabbit is, and then moving on to a bone devil, a couple of giants, and even a small dragon. That's the small dragon in the picture before. And then the ranger leads them to the dungeon, and they have to go through the dungeon and deal with the various tricks in the dungeon, including one of those "I'm a door that always lies" and "I'm a door that always tells the truth" puzzles. But finally, they get the thing that proves the MacGuffin, the thing that proves whether the kingdom was meant to be a monarchy or a democracy. Spoilers, obviously it's meant to be a democracy. Otherwise, those people would not have been trying to stop you in the first place. It's a very simple adventure. It's hilarious. I mean, I laughed out loud the first time I read it. I don't know if it's intentionally supposed to be hilarious, but it's hilarious. I love the encounters. I love the theme. I love the fact that every encounter increases in difficulty, all while dealing with we're looking for the rabbit. The imagery of the goblins running around in the royal clothing, chasing things into cages is just hilarious. And every encounter, from the very first to the very last, can be resolved through combat, or it can be resolved non-combat just by talking to them. The goblin encounters are perfect. All you had to do was tell them or show them what a rabbit is, and that just, curtails any violence, because they're like, oh darn, we messed up. And also it can be tailored, even though it's technically a high level adventure, because you run into a dragon. I think it can be tailored for any level. I've run it for first level characters, I've run it for 8th level characters, I've run it for 10th level characters. I fit it into multiple different campaigns in multiple different ways. Because really, the story is it's the encounters and the hilariousness and the absurdity of the encounters and all these monsters looking for a rabbit. And then this rabbit trying so desperately to prove to you it's the ranger. And then, of course, you have the little politics and role-playing and just encounters. And just, it can be serious, it can be silly. It can be run, I think, for any level. Instead of having a dragon, it could be a guy in a dragon suit. Or it can be a full-on dragon. It can be, resolved through just talking and thinking through the encounters, or you can be resolved through fight. Obviously, there's treasure, including the possibility of getting your hands on a Rod of Splendor. But yeah, it's a great adventure. I love it. There was only like 3 or 4 in this series. Child's Play was one. There was one called Gargoyle. And there was one, I think, called like Eagle's Airy or something like that. And that's, I think, the only ones in this Greyhawk Adventure series that I remember. There might have been more, but this is the one that stands out. I absolutely love it for all the reasons I just said. Obviously, it's probably very difficult to find, though I'm sure you can find a PDF online. Check it out for yourself. See if you agree with me that it is hilarious, or you disagree with me and you're like, no, dude, you got this thing totally wrong. Anyways, that's today's first adventure module tabletop role-playing game thing I absolutely love for no specific reason whatsoever other than it's silly, and the whole rabbit thing I just absolutely love. So let me know what you think. Comment down below, like, share, please subscribe. Help me hit 1,000 subs by August 4th, and we'll do something crazy. Till then, I am your guide to all the tabletop role-playing game news, weather, sports, and general internet nonsense and anxiety, the OGGM. Now, well, show me that rabbit. I don't know what a rabbit is. Rabbit. Are you a rabbit? You're a rabbit. I'm a rabbit. You're a rabbit. They're a rabbit. 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 See ya.